And the list kind of goes on from there. NSA recruit, hacker parents raising hacker kids, hacker anthropologists who embedded for 6 years with him, anonymous, and on and on. So I hope you have fun with that. Look it up anywhere, and it's called The Hacker Next Door. Thanks.
So yes, any other remarks or?
On with the show.
All right. Thank you very much to Sherry and everyone at LMG, and to all of you. This is a full room for something midweek in an afternoon in a small quiet town. So I am sure that you would much rather be enjoying beautiful weather and scenery, and somehow you're here. So we're going to try to make it worth it. And I definitely understand, like, people who know me or have met me or catch me online. We understand that my job is a fun job. I'm right out of the gate not going to lie. Like, none of my team and I belong anywhere in this room. We were not authorized to get in this room. But of course, there we are, because that is what we do. We are professional thieves. Our job is to mimic and simulate and emulate attackers, and to think like them, to spot a target, spot the weaknesses, exploit that, and get inside and get to all the critical assets. And it is very exciting, I'm not going to lie. It is not this exciting. Like, this is a magazine shoot where there's a number of things wrong, first of all. Like, we've got Rob, and the photographer is like, dude, you have your sidearm? Totally, like, stand there in stool position. He's like, we don't have guns anymore when we do. Like, that's his old job. He used to be federal police, right? And also, in my hands, is wrong, because they're like, oh, take out your lockpicks down there, and get up at that door, and make sure, with your lockpicks there, that makes good photography. Okay, like, sure, lockpicking, that's how I'm known. And if you've ever seen any of my lockpicking slides, like, we could talk about this all day. And I have talked at length about this. And if you've ever seen any of my videos, like, you've seen these animations about how a lock works and how a key works, and okay, well, the bitting goes this way with the key blade, and it pushes the pins, and that's how the pins get to the shear line. And I love explaining this stuff. And I love explaining how you can get the pins in the right alignment without a key, right? Like using pick tools. If you've ever seen any of my talks or animations, and many times these animations show up, not from me. People are just throwing them on Reddit and Twitter. Have you ever seen lock diagrams like this, right? Okay, we're not going to talk about basically any of this, because as I tried to tell the photographer for that one photo session, I'm like, this is not what we do most of the time. For the most part, like, yes, lockpicking is fun, and if we want to do some stuff later, I can talk about it. But in the real world, like, meticulously setting one pin and another pin, like, that's somewhere down like step 8 of trying to get in a building. Most of what we do as a team is way faster and way more low tech, and frankly, way easier to understand, because it's such a basic level of like bypassing style attacks. Let's get right to it, right? Let's talk about some of the dumbest things that both real criminals and wannabe criminals like us do. Do you know the number of doors I've taken off by knocking the hinge pins out? Like, if the hinges are facing you, which, again, in a residential environment, you wouldn't expect that, right? Because, well, my door opens in. But no, in commercial land, we have well more than 50 people here. That makes this an area of assembly, which means all doors have to open outward. They have to open outward with less than 5 pounds of force, with a panic exit device. There's a whole bunch of code that you get into, which means that coming up to doors and knocking the hinge pins out is absolutely valid. This is a slick little tool, by the way. It's a hammerless hinge pin knocker, way smaller than walking around with a hammer in your back pocket. So yeah, like, bash the hinge pins out, walk the door away from the wall. You can absolutely do that. And start looking around at most commercial environments. Again, doors are going to open outward, and those hinges are going to be on the outside. Do not dismiss this as an attack vector. I've used it a lot. And for most of the things I'll talk about, by the way, I love not just dropping like angry, fearful stuff. I like giving you solutions. As simple as this attack is, the solution is also equally simple. So this is called a security hinge. You can see it has a little peg, it has a little hole over here, and when mounted, you drill a hole in the frame. The idea being, you swing the door shut, that peg inserts into that hole. And if the door is closed, it doesn't matter if I take all the pins out on the hinges, right? I can't wrench this away from the wall. And that's a simple part. That's an easy thing to have. You don't even have to rehang your doors. if you already have an existing structure, right? These are called jam pins. They're made by a company called Major Manufacturing. The old company founded by Jerry Finch. He was a famous locksmith. And it's a brilliant, brilliant device. How does it work? Well, you got your regular hinge. Take out these screws. Replace them with jam pins. All right? Take out these screws. Replace them with nothing. You've just created a security hinge. And you didn't have to rehang your doors. You didn't have to do a whole bunch of mess. You didn't have to hire a professional. Like, anyone can do this. I advocate a lot of these low-tech solutions. In a commercial environment, you may, of course, sometimes see a little set screw. That's called a captive pin. So you can't actually knock that from the outside. By the way, this is, if you had to guess, right, this is clearly like taupe wallpaper, very much an interior door inside a building, but there's clearly a large door closer here. If you had to take a guess in my life of travel, what kind of door am I looking at here?
Hotel.
Yes, this is a hotel, absolutely. I travel, my wife and I are both traveling about 2/3 of the time, mostly because we like to be together. So if she's doing a thing, I'll go with her. If I'm doing a break-in, she'll come with me. So we spend a lot of time in hotels. Let's talk about hotels through the eyes of a thief for a second, right? So do we have any other frequent travelers in the room? Okay, absolutely. So right off the hop, terrible, terrible door fitment in so many buildings, right? This is a door that looks closed, but not really closed. So like, if I could like smash this door open, full open, bounce off the wall, looks closed, no, it's not closed. Because door fitment is a mess in a lot of places, right? Here's another hotel. Is it gonna close? Looks kind of closed. I heard a good click. Sounds clicky. No, just push it again. I just fought with this door for 30 seconds before I gave up and was like, well, I don't have anything worth stealing, thankfully. But yeah, the idea, we'll revisit this a lot. Door fitment problems, and you'll see they're exploitable in many ways. Simple mechanical door fitment problems. You think it's closed? Okay, is it really closed? All right, maybe we can go to dinner, thank God. The industry accepted standard, if you want to like yell at someone, is open the door by the width of the door itself. It should self-close and latch correctly. And if you want to like get on your facilities teams or get on your constructors, if you got a new building going up, that is how your doors should perform. Or if you want to test, because that's a pretty egregious test. Like, a lot of doors aren't going to perform this way, but they should. Door fitment is a big thing we leverage. Let's talk about door fitment in an attacker's perspective. So here we have a locked door. This is critical infrastructure. This is a water pumping facility for a town. That door is locked, but that door is open. Well, that's no good. Let's see that again. Was that like a fluke? It's slammed shut. It's proper locked. But I'm reaching in with something. It's not a lockpick. All right, that door is open. So if anyone has seen a lot, I mention this all the time in my talks, right? This is a tool called a traveler hook. And I'm just reaching in. You'll see it better from the other angle here. I'm reaching in a tiny gap in the door, and I'm able to grab the latch and just swing it out of the way, just hook the latch, pull it, and open the door. This is really, really common. I'm going to say at least 1/3 of our attacks wind up involving the traveler hook or latch slipping in some part of a building's perimeter. Maybe not every door is vulnerable, but at least one. And I originally learned about this from my buddy named Keith. He was actually a trading locksmith years before I got into the game. And he was going to be at this event, and I said, "Oh, Keith, it's not. I've met you online with Tool, but I'm really excited to meet you. You were actually a trading locksmith in the field." And we hooked up. I was like, "Hey, I really would love to like see your entry kit that you would carry around like when you were working." So he dumps out these tools, and I'm like, "What?" I said, "Not your service tools, your entry kit. What is that?" He's like, "Oh, these are my entry tools. Yeah." I was like credit card, like latch slipping. He's like, "Oh yeah, doors all the time. It's a mess." And that was my foray. And I was like, "Are you effing? What is this thing in the middle?" He's like, "Oh, it's a traveler hook. It opens everything." And it's a textile industry tool, right? It's like an O-ring pick. If you go to Harbor Freight, you can find things like this. So yeah, if you can get at that latch and get it moving, why pick the lock? What about this? Oh, we can't get at the latch though. We got a big protective plate over it. Can't get a traveler hook in there. You can get piano wire in there though. All right. Oh, there we go. Okay. The problem is not whether or not I can reach the latch. The idea is even if I can touch the latch directly, I shouldn't be able to slip it or hook it or anything like that. This diagram right here, this is showing something that most doors today will have. This is called a dead latch. And that's sort of a collision of terms, right? Like, well, you see my house has a deadbolt, and my door has like a latch on the door. What is a dead latch? So highlighted in yellow, that is the latch. The door shuts, the latch springs out into the strike plate. If you lean on the door, it will not open. And many of you are aware that like doors used to just have that. And if you've grown up many years on this earth as I have, you remember that this is what every latch looked like. But sometime around the late 70s, early 80s, we started going from this over to this. A latch that has this extra, what's this guy? What's this little extra finger sitting over here? Well, that little protrusion, sometimes called the dead latch plunger, sometimes called the guard bolt, if you're in the locksmithing world, I'll highlight it in red. That is the sign of a dead latch. But again, most of us who see this, we only see it when the door's open. You're like, oh, well, you can press the poking bits. What did that do? You might not be aware that when the door shuts, that dead latch plunger, that guard bolt, is supposed to be held back by the strike plate. It is not supposed to pop out into the strike plate hole. If that little plunger is held back, the latch itself, the large part, is now dead. It is blocked. It will not slip or hook or any of those attacks. So if you have a dead latch working correctly, that's great. It's harder on me. The problem is many people don't. Door fitment, again, is our culprit. You have the wrong hardware. If the strike plate is not the right size, like here we have a server room. I'm going to use a very restricted government tool here. It is called a piece of garbage. I'm going to shove a piece of plastic into this door jamb. Bam, server room access. Now, let's look closely at that. Does this look like the original factory strike plate? That didn't come with this Schlage commercial handle set, right? Why is this, like, look at the size of the strike plate hole. It's enormous. Why is it so big? What kind of hardware is this?
RFID.
Yes, I'm hearing RFID access control. You can see there's a card reader on the door. This is an electronically controlled door. So if someone badges in, there's a little solenoid-powered electronic strike that'll pop out of the way, right? If the integrator you're using, if the installer and constructor is not using the right hardware, if they're using like, oh, well, we always order this one because it's got the big hole. It always works on every door. I've heard this from constructors. And they're like, yeah, we always order the X27 because it always plays nice. No, like, no. That's not what you want. You want tight fitment because you want that guard bolt to be retracted. Again, more critical infrastructure. This is street level access, like from the outside in. That door, nice lock. I'm not going to mess with that lock. It's like a pig forever. But there you go, like bam. Like this is all door fitment. I don't belong in here. I'm a walking OSHA violation in this room. But a $5 hook gets me from street to pumps. That's bad. And we can talk about this in other ways. I mentioned egress devices, crash bars and things. That's me reaching. That was so fast. Let's play that again for a second. All right. I'm talking up here too much. This is reaching through the door with just a bent rod. Turn, yank, slap. Okay. Because again, how many pounds of pressure on that exit device? 5 pounds of pressure. An old person, an enfeebled person, a kid, if there's a fire, they have to get out. You have to be able to release the lock on that door with little pressure. Weather stripping is not a solution for door fitment. Weather stripping is great for your environmentals, but that is not a security surface, right? If I can hit that crash bar, if I can hit that exit paddle right there, and you can see this monstrous gap right here in the door. How many people have ever seen this piece of hardware? Oh my gosh, yes. The Rockwood style door panic exit device. A number of companies sell it. Here's our buddy Robert. And these are two guys from facilities. They thought he was like a wizard. He walked up to this door and they're like, he didn't badge, what was that? He didn't badge in. He's showing them, okay, well, I'm just gonna reach in with a giant hook. By the way, in a number of the footage you're seeing, reaching through the gaps, there is something else in frame that could mitigate some of this risk. Who notices something in this shot here? Right, there's clearly a deadbolt down here. I mean, it's a little hard to tell, but it's actually like 2 in the morning. And this is a low or probably no occupancy structure at night. They could legally like lock this deadbolt, and they're not violating code. But let's talk about code. Let's talk about deadbolts. So, to be code-based, you have to have a thumb turn, a manual thumb turn on your inside deadbolt. This whole like double key thing that you sometimes see, that's not going to fly with most civil authorities. And if there's a thumb turn on the inside of the door, and if there's a gap on the edge of the door, well, this tool exists. Have you ever seen one of these? First responders, firefighters in this room might know what this is. This is a thumb turn flipper. reach it through the door, just go kind of, and there you go. So like space equals options. If there's gap, if there's fitment problem, there's a way usually for my team to get in. We can talk about padlocks if we want. And again, I said I don't usually pick locks, right? Every one of these locks up here are bypassable. I don't mean like we can take out and manipulate something. I mean like 10-second or less, anybody with no training, I can have you flying through every one of these locks. We have footage of this. What I'm going to say is we have examples up here. Instead of me playing you videos and so forth, I'm happy. Like, all right, I'll just give you one, right? The one kind of in the middle, because it's such an old dumb attack, right? This is how many people have seen this lock, this black padlock, right? So this is called a comb pick, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of reach under the pins and just spring that open. This is probably one of the most, I would say it's the most bypassable lock at Home Depot, except for all the others. Exactly. Like every last one of these, we can show you springing them open in no time. Every one of you can do that. Every one of you can do that to these locks, to a lot of door locks. But let's talk about electronic locks for a second. Like physical and mechanical devices are one thing. But we start to get into like, well, there's card reader access systems and there's like sensors and alarms. Like, I could never do that. Yes, you could. Let's go with the simplest attack against many electronic doors. So this is a developing and prototyping lab in Philadelphia where we used to have our office. And we're there with one of our buddies, Ross. And this is actually the building owner. And Bobek has just showed Ross a tactic. He's like, all right, so here, no, move it over here, and you do a thing. They're using, again, really hard to source tool here. Who knows what kind of tool they're using? Yes, this is a can of air. And you can see like a little bit of gas, something, what was happening there, and then the door's open, right? And Evan, the building owner, is like, wait, do that again? What we're exploiting here is called a request to exit sensor. Many electronically controlled buildings will have sensors that look like this above doors. If you haven't noticed them before, you're going to start noticing them. Especially this one. This is the Honeywell IS210. Like it's resold by 1 billion integrators because it's the super cheap one and it's easily tunable. This is everywhere. Many facilities you have to credential in, but on your egress, like how many people have worked in a facility where you credential in, but you can just exit by walking out, right? In many instances, if that's an electronically locked door, it has to unlock somehow. This is the cheapest and easiest way to make a door unlock electronically. It'll detect motion. It uses passive infrared. As long as it sees any change in thermals, it's, oh, that must be a person leaving. I'm going to unlock now. And we're tricking it by using either, just a can of air duster, which is the simplest, cheapest solution. You just take your standard office duster, flip it upside down, and that propellant inside will boil off when it hits the atmosphere. If you have like Edmund Scientific or other if you do a lot of chip debugging work, you might find super cold, or you might find tech spray, freeze spray, it's sometimes called. It's going to work the same way. The idea is you have this door. This door is locked. But if we shoot that gas through, bam, the rec sensor thinks someone is on the inside of the door leaving, that door suddenly unlocks. Yes?
I recall you did this here in town with a liquid.
I did this in town. You'll see that in like 2 slides.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's good because I show that in my classes. It's their favorite.
I love it. So this is a fellow who runs an event called DerbyCon. This is Dave Kennedy. And he's a big e-cig, like vape guy. I think he's almost coils. So he can make these big clouds. So when our friend Chris told him about this, he's like, he tried this out. He's like, all right, just trying to, and he's listening to hear that release. He's listening for the circuit to go click and feel that door unlock. Because if he can trip the sensor, now unlocked. So I love that. I love that clip, and Dave's a cool guy. I don't smoke. I do drink. So let's say we have this, right? So we've got this door. This is clearly a locked door, but there's a reg sensor up there. And I had walked out of like the Reds bar or something, just walking downtown with a whiskey one night. And that just kind of works. So yeah, by all means. And I didn't enter the bank itself. It's the ATM vestibule. It's no crimes were, I think, committed. Someone else who's my lawyer can answer that more adequately. But yeah, like that's rec sensors, man. Rec sensors will jam you every time. Like hotels. Here's a hotel late at night. I left without my key, but I wanted to get back inside. So I'm just waving. You ever see like the big brochures, like come see the Mystic Caverns? Like I just took one of those brochures. Where was I keeping the brochure before I did that? Yes, where was I? Under my arm. Why? Warm it up, exactly. All you have to be is a noticeable amount of different from the ambient, cold or hot, and then bam. So yeah, better tech exists even in this space. If you have a commercial space, if you really care. So this is, again, this is that passive infrared that you'll see everywhere if you start looking. This is made by GE. This is infrared and microwave radar. So it has to see something vaguely human-sized and has to be coming toward the door. So yeah, better tech exists, dual technology sensors exist. What's the downside? The downside is false negatives. If you have a bunch of customers and they're like walking up to the door with boxes and they bounce into the door because it didn't read them, that integrator is going to get angry phone calls. Like, come out here, like tune the sensor better. And that integrator is not going to want to install this, especially since it costs more and causes problems. Integrators want to satisfy the customer in a way that doesn't result in more call-outs. By the way, if you have like an uber secure facility, like the kind of the best solution allegedly, it's featured in this nice business building here. Who can spot what they're doing?
Push button exit.
Yes, you said push button exit, the little green light over here. Absolutely. Has anyone ever been in a building that does push to exit? Absolutely. So this is a lot harder to trick out. I'm not going to blow gas, through the door and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to say that you don't see these in environments like server cages, though, where sometimes, again, could plan this better. Here we have a server, it's still locked, the cages, secure cages are locked, but let's just kind of right? Well, oops. But again, the integrator's like, all right, they want the button, they want the thing, I've complied with it's between 40 and 48 inches off the ground, that's lunch. Like, this is the kind of stuff that you see in the world all the time. And a lot of this is, again, legal code. You can't have that button a bajillion miles away from the door, because what if someone's in a wheelchair? You have to make sure, you can't be all ableist, like someone needs to hit it and grab the door with one hand if they're slow moving. We're joking here, but it's hard. It's hard to do it right. And we get jammed up on a lot of things. Something that's just ruination of most security in buildings, or at least it ruins them against us when we come in and attack, right? Lever-style door handles. When's the last time you saw a knob in a commercial building? Like, you haven't for years. Because if someone doesn't have grip function in their hand, they need to be able to use the door, especially in emergencies. This lever-style door handle, super vulnerable to what is known as an under-door tool. If you're not familiar with under-door tools, they are basically just a rod and a wire. You reach up with the rod, you pull the wire. Bam, you've hit the inside handle from the outside. This is this is a destroyer of worlds in most corporate environments. And it's so simple. This is a fabric cobbled one using Home Depot parts, not even a commercial product right here. Hit the handle, pull the handle. This is us on a job late at night. We're at an IDF wiring closet. And when we showed the client this video, they're like, oh, is Rob, is he going to take a screwdriver out? They thought he was going to unscrew this grate and crawl through it. And they're watching him, they're like, no, what the hell is he doing? Is the screwdriver in his sock? And then they see him lean his head into the door. And the CEO is like scratching his, what the? And then all of a sudden, the door pops open. And that's how we got into the badge wiring system. Because again, Rob is rocking this handle over, yank, push. Are there solutions for this? Yeah, there absolutely are. Frankly, contoured door sills and contoured door bottoms really are the best solution here. Interlocking door sills, interlocking door bottoms, you'll see these on exterior doors, but there's very little that says this is a code violation indoors. You can absolutely have, you can even have an articulating sill cap. Again, these are sort of environmentally geared products so that, oh, you're paying for your air conditioning, but these will completely stymie us trying to shove something under the door. And you can use these. You can deploy these, not in every office, but if you have one super secure room, consider it. Consider protecting the door bottom. You'll force me to go over the door top. This is a video, this is a technique that Sherry taught us. So InfoSec Pope, if you go to 801, if you're down in Utah, St. Con, there's a wonderful crew. So Pope taught me this. What is this product for the youngins in the room?
Film.
This is called film. It used to take photographs. But yeah, you send a bow of film over the door, you walk it over. How do I know where my height is? I'm on the other side. How do I know how high the handle is? It's on the other side of the bloody door. Yeah, exactly. I know exactly what I'm doing. And then you just give her a yank. Most doors will open up, and there you go. So yeah, over-door attacks. The hardest part, honestly, of this attack is finding film nowadays. Hope sent me a giant movie reel that I didn't ask where he got it. So I got film to beat the band. If you want, just email me or something. The cool solution to this, like all of these door handle attacks, one of the neatest things I ever saw was this right here. This is a handle shroud, and it was on like one facility that I was like, oh my God, like we were reefing on this server door a bunch, and finally we put a camera under the door. I'm like, oh my God, what is that? And it was a whole mess. We had to get in a different way. And I asked the security manager, I'm like, hey, the door handle shrouds, that was kicking our butt. Where did you get this thing? He's like, oh no, this place used to be a different building. We just inherited those. They were there. You realize those aren't security products. I'm like, what? He's like, no, they're for like carts going past doors so you don't get hung up on the handles. Like, this is in the Grainger catalog. You can just order this, and like, there you go, put them around your handles and ruin my day. If you've ever been, especially in accommodations like hotels, have you ever seen door handles mounted sideways or down? It's all because of under-door attacks, absolutely. Like, building managers that are in the know, they will do this. Or, like, I saw this once, this is wonderful. I call this albino alligator protecting your door. And when we were trying to figure out what this was, I'm like, hey, so the little plasticky clips around the, is that because of under-door attacks? He was like, oh yeah, you've heard of that? Yeah, we have people breaking in rooms sometimes. I'm like, where did you get these little clips? They're small, they fit perfectly. And he's like, well, you have one of the suites, right? So you know the closet has the sliding door tracks. It's just those products that you can just get at Home Depot. Like, they're available. So, oh my gosh, I love dumb, cheap solutions that you can bolt on and make. My job, if I'm doing it right, is to make my life harder. Because my job is to make your worlds better for cheap and easy kind of fixes. By the way, if you travel, that whole hotel thing, you can't like drill into the hotel door. You might get, your deposit not back. But what you can do is go ahead and stuff a towel in there. If you've ever seen, this trick before. Anybody, is a Douglas Adams fan, always know where your towel is. So that'll absolutely interfere with the idea of getting over or under the door and trying to pull on that handle. I love this, like our Dutch friends showed this in a talk years ago, and I do this at night. I do this in hotels nowadays when I stay places. So, we've talked about doors, we talked about fitment. Let's talk about keys for a second. Let's talk about how secure your keys are, or how secure the maintenance staff's keys are. This is in a corporate campus. Yes, there was a maintenance cart that was just sitting there. Like, I could have just stolen all of these keys if I wanted to. But that's kind of, someone might notice the keys are gone. Let's talk about other ways to steal keys. Let's talk about if you have, let's say, this was an Airbnb, and many times when you're checking into an Airbnb, how do you get the keys? The keys are in this photo right here. Yeah, there is a lockbox somewhere in this photo. Where do you think it is? Everyone loves to guess the rocks. It's not the rocks. What? In the hose thing? It's near the hose thing. Yeah, go up. Where? Left? Yes. There it is. How many people have seen this at Home Depot and Lowe's and every other hardware store? The 5400 series. Oh my God. So this is a ridiculously bypassable tool. It's not really bypassable, it's decodable. Again, with that same thin blade of metal that you can make out of any little shim stock you come across, you can run those wheels, find little gaps in the wheels. I can teach anyone to do this in about 30 seconds. And these basically every key box on the market is awful. Pop it open, grab keys out of them. Now, that's an Airbnb, right? So who cares? More and more commercial buildings nowadays are weird shared use structures where you have infrastructure on the roof, and Verizon has to come out once every few months and do something with an antenna. So there's 8 different key boxes on this one target. We have one over the door, and we have a whole ton down here. And every one of them are hot garbage. And they all contain 8 copies of the master key for this building. It was we were just hey, did you get a master key yet? Sophie, do you get a all right, let's decode this one. You take a master key. All right, let's go wreck this property. It was key bonanza, right? So being able to use a lockbox, they're not a good way to protect keys. If I want to steal keys, I will absolutely look for lockboxes. What about stealing keys without even going hands-on, though? This is a talk I gave at North Carolina. There's a HackerCon down there called KakalakiCon. It's a very fun time, and I talked about stealing keys either through cast and mold attacks with hot metal or optically decoding. This was a talk I was setting up at a university, and they had like a wiring room with the projector controls. So somebody came in, they said, okay, we'll open this thing, okay, we'll turn on the circuits, okay, blah, blah, you need the Wi-Fi, okay. And they kind of threw this key down for a second as they were switching everything on. And I didn't want to take the key. I mean, I'm their guest, I'm not a complete jerk. But I did take a photo of the key. And it's not a great photo. This is like drive-by with a cell phone. Okay, there. But this is enough for me to dump this into a little template that I have. You understand the cuts on a key, they're called the bitting of the key. They're not an infinite range. There are very discrete individual zones that a key can be cut to. And if you have template files, which in my talk, I throw all these templates up on GitHub. You want to download the templates, take a photo of a key, straighten it out in your favorite image editor, and then just look your way down the template lines. This is a Schlage key. It's one of the most common keys in commercial America. Schlage starts at 0 and then goes from there, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we look, well, heck no, it's not a 1, a 2, a 3. What does this look like? That looks like a 5. Okay, great, that's the first cut on this key. Knowing what you know, and my templates have little blue is even, gray is odd. What's the next line? Who can see up front? Can you shout it out? That looks like a 2. Schlage goes all the way down to 9. What's the next one? A couple up from that.
7.
There we go, we got a 7. We got a gray or blue in the next one.
6.
Yeah, we got a 6, because she's even. How about next? 7, and then 2. All right. 30 seconds as a group, we just decoded this key from a complete crappy photo, like that. And in the field, you don't also, by the way, have to like run to a locksmith. I have what's called a little hand-sized key punch. So I can throw a blank in, go punch, 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 spit the key out, and then there you go, there's a copy, without ever touching the original key. And this is the kind of stuff that goes through my head when I'm in like Lyft and other shared ride services. So many people, just they're dangling their house keys out there. And I realize that, this is not everyone's threat model, but like, that freaks me out, man. Like, I know this person's keys. I've gotten right up to guards, and you can absolutely get the bitting, even at a terrible angle, like you can see the bitting of this key. We've decoded this standing right there, pretending, oh yeah, I'm not in the visitor system? That's weird. Oh, I'll have to check my contact. All right, I'll come back later. And we just come around the side door because we just made a freaking key. There's a YouTube video of a bunch of people that were protesting in front of like an FBI building. And some guy comes in, he's like, hey, look, I'm sorry, but I gotta put you back on the sidewalk. And he's talking to people, and I'm looking at the YouTube video, and someone sent it to me. He's like, hey, what is that in his pocket? Okay, yeah, so that's a Yale 1, there you go, that's a Y1, and there's your bidding. Okay, so hopefully that doesn't go to something important. That's on YouTube right now. If you look at your own keys, you might even notice something that could make the job even easier. Forget the templates and the lines for a second. Yeah, there's numbers on these keys. Wait a minute. Look at this one. This one says 86555, and this is 228333. Now wait a minute. If I did put the lines on there, does that kind of look like 86555 and 228333? That's called a direct bidding code. Many people's keys have direct bidding codes stamped on them from the factory. And if your keys are just sitting on the bar next to you or at a table and you're with people, I jumped into Slack with the tool people. I was like, hey, I'm doing a talk. Anybody have direct bidding codes? I want to get a lot of key photos. And boy, did the community deliver. Because there are so many keys out there. Like Brett jumped in. He's like, yeah, I got a couple. Every one of these is the direct bidding code on this key. So the idea is if your keys are just hanging, on your hip, and someone can see them clearly. I love that people are checking their keys right now. This is marvelous. Well done. If you want, does yours have numbers on it? All of them. Well then, may I introduce you to this little utility tool thing. It covers up your key. It's not designed to be like a key shield, right? It's designed to be a screwdriver and bottle opener. But I mean, absolutely, if you want your keys to kind of stay out of sight, pick up a little $5 key shield on Amazon, and then you get an extra, screwdriver and wire stripper and so forth. What you got, Patrick?
I don't worry because mine says do not copy.
Oh, you're sick. Right on. I would love to copy your key for you just right now, later. By all means. If it's a Schlage, I'll use the punch on it. You'll use the punch on it. So yeah, Think about what information you're leaking sometimes. Because again, if I can just get a glance at it, I can usually turn that, I can weaponize that information. But someone might say, well, look, all right, I understand that mechanical keys, but we have electronics all around our facility. All right, let's talk about some electronic access controls. Let's talk about telephony access controls. These are super popular in large residential and small office environments, where you have like a little phone directory, or maybe you have a PIN code to get in. Would it astonish maybe some of you to know that most of these brands have one key? So like this is Linear. Linear has the 222343 key, and it opens the Linear panel on every one of these boxes across their whole product line. What can you do if the box is open? Well, there are momentary switches in there. You can just fire the relays and trip door contacts. So here I'm at a big gated facility, but I have my Linear key. I love that I don't have to get out of the car. Just momentary, all right, let's try the door relay. All right, I see the gate start moving. Solid entry. And the people that we pulled up to their building, and they're like, how did you get in here? I'm like, well, you have a box on the door that is controlled by this key, which is not a restricted key. Like anyone can order this from just installer catalogs. If you look around and you see these big boxes outside of buildings, if you ever see the big AZ call, the big 3 buttons, this is like, you can spot that from Google Maps. It's huge. If we see them on a Target, we're like, yes, Door King. Door King Systems, another big player, huge market share. Door King Systems all use the same key. They use the 16120 key. They've used it since the 90s. And again, if you can open up the panel, there's a whole lot of parts inside of there that you can mess with. What can you do inside of the parts? Well, you can jump out the door relays, you can fire extra switches. There's a postal access mode that you can fire. This one doesn't even have the postal switch hooked up, but I know that if I bridge contacts 4 and 6, because it's always 4 and 6 on the terminal block, I can ground it out, and that'll fire the door. That'll just unlock all the door relays. 16120 key opens it up. Get a little loop of wire in here. It's like Matthew Broderick with the beer can tab and the phone, right? There we go. Okay, door's open. Is the 16120, well, if it works across the entire Door King product line, it must be only restricted to Door King customers. No, it's on freaking eBay. Like, everybody can find these keys. My favorite key for like key-to-like systems, by the way, as we're talking about it, has anyone heard me talk about the CH751? There's a couple of hands going up. So the CH751 is effectively the most common key in America. It is reused and reused and resold and repackaged in so many installations. There was a story years back about, thieves are doing gas pump credit card skimmers because they have this key that opens the gas pump. And NBC News got static. People like, hey, don't show the key. You're giving away. And locksmiths cracked up because they're like, oh my God, CH751. Really? Yes, really. If you go on Amazon, look under locks and home hardware, search for key. It's the most popular item that turns up results. Every rinky-dink, I need a stupid lock on this thing for no reason key has a good chance of being the CH751. Like, again, this is like, oh, I'm too cold and you're too hot, let's argue about it in the office. Like, who cares about this? But like, these are 2 office locks. This is the fact key, this is the fire enunciator, and this is a Brevo badge. This is the badge system. This is the door controller. They're both CH751s. People have started sending me and my buddy Howard photos of this key working in places ever since we gave a talk about it. Another door controller installation, CH751. An alarm panel, CH751. This is great. How many people have been in the building where like all the important keys are behind the worst lock in the building? In which case, like, here's your lockbox. This is a CH751. And it gets me every key in the building. You know my favorite part about this? In this photo, opened by a CH751, there are no less than 3 more CH751s that do other stuff in this company. So, oh my God, like if you get 1 key, if you see 1 key this summer, make it be that. So yeah, it's like $1 and it opens so much stuff. That up, down, up pattern has been reused and resold for decades. And you throw it into things, it'll start astonishing you. But we were talking about electronics. We got a little sidetracked. Sorry, getting back on track. So who has ever used a badge system? Who's ever used electronic credentials? Okay. So these are, they used to be the realm of business only, and now they're really penetrating the market in a lot of ways. So people are accustomed to seeing, card-sized credentials or key fobs, and you use them at the reader. I have a different reader that I always travel with. This is my reader. This is called a Proxmark. This is an electronic credential, basically debugging and attack tool. And if I hook it up to my laptop, I can do a lot of things to credentials. I can interrogate credentials, I can crack keys on the credentials, I can dump the credentials, I can copy them to other credentials. By the way, what kind of credential am I using here, if you had to guess? That doesn't look like it was made by HID. What kind of key is that? That's a hotel room key, absolutely. The first thing I do when I check into a lot of hotels is play with the electronic locks. Either try to copy and crack the key card to my room, or if maybe you get an electronic safe, right? Oh my God, electronic safes, they're in every hospitality install nowadays. Does it shock anyone that most hotel safes are hot garbage as well? Because again, they're supposed to be easy to use and cheap. That's what hotels care about. They don't care if they're actually secure. So here we have, all right, we've locked up our safe. The next time you're in a hotel and you're bored, look if your hotel safe has a little brass sort of badge on it. Go ahead and look underneath that badge. It's almost always a little cover plate covering up the mechanical override lock. And the mechanical override lock is almost always a pile of fail sauce. This is a little cheap Chinese cross rake. It's an odd kind of lock. You could pick it, but it's way easier just to shove this rake in there and pop that open. And again, is this a crazy expensive restricted tool? No. This is a $13 tool for the whole set. You give one out to all your friends. Or you can get a cross. This is a nicer tool. This is an actual cross rake that'll work a little more reliably. I mean, the other one worked pretty fast. This works even faster. This is Robert. He's checking in for another job. Pretty much all of our videos of safes, they're all involve guns in them, so I hope you're okay with that. This is Montana. But again, Robert's like, well, I wonder what could be behind this brass plate. Look back there. Of course it's the override lock. What kind is it? Of course it's a horrible lock. Because they're not expecting anyone to know it's there. They're not expecting anyone to try to attack it. And when Robert pops it open, he says, okay, well, I've got my cross pick. He doesn't even have to rake the lock. He just shoves the pick in, and he's like, does that, oh my God, that's turning. And it just suddenly falls open. So hospitality, he's like, what? Oh, that's worthless. You can hear him chattering on the video here. So yeah, look in your in-room safes. Look at how many of them have those little, usually brass kind of enamel badges on them, okay? That's not to say the only thing we do. I mean, we have had targets where a client has certain electronic safe they're using. We'll take it apart, we'll hook up a logic analyzer. We're not going to get too far into the weeds, but if you want to get into circuit design and chip design, we've got a little IC doing some work here, but we also have clearly exterior memory. Why is there exterior? Well, so the EEPROM doesn't have its own on-chip memory. Okay, well, something is being stored on this. So let's hook up our probes and wire it to our logic analyzer and just try things with the safe. And our electronics guy, Bobak, he's trying the right code, trying the wrong code, and he was just looking at traffic being pulled off the chip. He's like, oh, I can see it's trying to read my code that I set out of memory. A fun thing to do how many people have ever used their in-room safe? How many digits is it always? It's always 4. Always 4. Try to put more digits in, wrong digits, and see if it immediately yells at you on 4, or does it keep letting you input stuff to 6? There's usually a supervisory code. And by interrogating the chip, he was able to see, what are these numbers going across the bus? That's not my code. And he would all right, put it back together, try it. Oh wow, that constantly opens. But so this woman, friend Jen, she's locked her safe up. And again, if you start putting numbers in, and it allows you to do more than 4, you might have a code that's a supervisory code somewhere hidden in that system. And we've called manufacturers up and be like, hey, so I have this safe, how do I change the supervisory code? And they're like, what? There's no supervisory code. How did you know this? A lot of these companies don't talk about this. The really fun ones are when you have a safe that clearly supports this function and it's never been programmed. If you're in a hotel, you try, all right, you locked your safe up, right? You try numbers and you realize it's accepting more than 4 digits. You say to yourself, well, okay, this is going to allow me, there must be a supervisory code. All right, 6 digits, cool. Start trying dumb shit. And you might get this, all zeros, cool, nice, never been programmed. Nice, thank you, excellent. So yeah, in your hotels, what do I do in hotels? I mean, I just travel with a Pelican case and I lock it up. I have nice locks on my hard-sided Pelican case. And that's my safe that I trust way more than the hospitality safe. And in my room, I have a bunch of hidden cameras. Like, put hidden cameras around. They're so cheap now. They're all online. If anyone was in my room at my hotel in town, I will know. It'll alert me. And if you're actually going to sleep, I love throwing these little things out at you. There's something called a security doorstop. It's in all of our travel bags, man. We've stayed overseas, like we're in the Sandbox or North Africa or something. Like, we've stayed in really shady compounds. What you do is you have this little metal wedge, you shove it under the door, and you crank this screw down into the floor, essentially. That's not going anywhere. That, or even cheaper, if you don't want to like damage the floor, if you're a nice guest, there is something called a grip strap that goes around the deadbolt. It is on Amazon as well. I don't work for any of these companies. I just love showing you what I think are cheap, easy solutions. There's always some configuration, if you take a minute and think about it, that you can get this around the deadbolt in a way that will not let someone on the outside either use a key or use their card access and so forth. So most of the time when I'm racking out and I'm on the road, there's going to be some tool like this on the inside of my door, and I can get a good 8 or 9 hours hard down, and I know no one's coming in with if they're not ignoring the housekeeping sign and everything else like that. Again, these aren't full, like you think it's a dead bolt, well, I've thrown the deadbolt. In many cases, if someone can hit the inside handle, and how do you do that? Well, you do that with your underdoor tool, right? I like that extra protection. So, we keep getting off track. I promise we're going to talk about good stories. We're going to talk about electronics. One more second, though. So stealing, we talked about stealing keys. Let's talk about stealing electronic credentials. This is a long-range RFID reader. It's what you would see on like a parking garage, right? It's instead of a couple inches, this has a read range of 1 to 2 feet. Well, we weaponize these. My team and I, especially Bobek, the fellow you see on the left, he will give it whole new innards. He'll give it circuitry, a little power supply, a little boost converter, a little Bluetooth chip that he can interact with it. And then this will just run sniffing for credentials. No wires in a wall. You'll just walk around with it. And if I get near you, just get, if you have a credential in your pocket, I can try to steal it out of your pocket. Now that looks weird if you're walking around with a pizza box like that. But if you just throw it in a backpack, throw it in a laptop bag, this is a credential grab right out of his pocket right there. And our friend Dennis, he can see on his phone, okay, got a good read. All right, I'm going to pretend I'm leaving now. We do this all the time against targets because a lot of employees have routines. We put surveillance on the target. We find out when they're coming and going. We find out what transit they're using. We find out what restaurants they like to get to. We had a really hardened target once that everyone who left the building, they didn't want anyone to know they worked there. So they would tuck their cards in, and we weren't sure, like, do they have their badge? Do they not? Which pocket is it in? But they did have a lobby that you could show up and be like, hi, I'm here for a meeting. Oh, they're not in right now? They're, okay, well, do you have a restroom? They had a restroom in the lobby. So what do? We got a card grab in a restroom one time. Bam, like, absolutely. Had a little laptop bag on the floor. It took a few minutes, but yeah, we got someone to come in, nailed it. That was enough to like, bam, get that credential, get in the building. The mitigation for this, they make little shielding protection covers for your cards. If you've ever been in a high security facility, you might have been issued a badge inside of a little blocking sleeve. There's a reason they exist. It makes our job a lot harder. Instead of attacking your card, well, what do we have to do then? We have to attack the reader. The reader on the wall. You'll see this in some of the stories I'm going to tell you, right? If you get that reader off the wall and get to the wires behind it, those wires aren't just providing power. Some of those wires are data lines, where the reader gets the credential and it shoots that credential data down a wire to the door controller. Well, we can install a little microchip, just punch it down right on the wires, and then just start sniffing credential data if we put it back on the wall. This is a chip about the size of a postage stamp. It's called an ESP key. And there's one installed, like right there. That's all it takes, self-powered, right off the red and black wires. And we're just getting credentials. Then we can come back later, dump those credentials that we stole, and leverage them, burn them onto new badges. We can get even crazier for a second with RFID, because I love talking about this. It freaks people out, right? So we've talked about regular credentials that many people have kind of used these in the past. Or maybe your apartment, or maybe like a gym might have given you a key fob. That's not the only form factor that RFID credentialing technology comes in. In the middle here, we have stickers. They're actually not to scale. Let's make them to scale. They can like go on a cell phone. If you don't want to carry a badge, you can badge in with your cell phone, all right? On the far right, though, those are also RFID credentials. They are also not to scale. Let's fix that. What are those? Does anybody know? Yes, those are bio-implant credentials. I, my wife, several other people in our firm, between the first and second metacarpals on our hands, we've gone under the needle and we have chips in our hands. They are rewritable, reprogrammable. They can emulate a lot of different tech. If you don't believe me, like the video is on YouTube, you can watch me getting stuck. What can you do with these? You can absolutely interact with readers. One of my, like, this is just me talking with, a little kid, and I'm like, hey, move your hand in front of the reader. Oh, really? Mine beeps. Your hand, maybe you were doing it wrong. Do it again. And she's like, how did you do that? She's trying, I'm like, no. And then, again, it was really fun to, like, mess around with people, and I'm like, no, check my hand out. She's like, why do you have chips in your hand? I'm like, oh, because I'm weird. But yeah, this is not the only purpose for this, right? You can reprogram these chips if you have a good credential. So this is my wife. This is her hand. We've reprogrammed it to the badge for a building where she had access. So even though they took her key card later when she was done this brief engagement, she can come up to the building, the door is locked, here we go, bam. This is not science fiction. Like, this is real stuff. And it applies in many ways in my life. Again, I stay in a lot of hotels. If I don't want to carry my room key around, maybe I'm going to be too tipsy later and I'll forget it or something. Never lose your room key again if you have it built into your hand. I actually did that here, the hotel I'm staying at in town. This is just a half an hour ago. Like, all right, we've got my room. Okay, I don't know if I have my keys on me. I honestly don't know where my keys are at this point. But I don't have to know. Because my room is here. Okay, rub it with my hand. And there we go, door access. Now, these are just funny kind of examples. There's a real story, though, on an actual job where we had gotten authorized to we had bluffed our way into a building. We're getting to the good story section now. So we had gotten into a building as like contractors. Like, oh, we're here to, refill the fluorescent light fluid or something. Some story made up. And they're like, okay, here's your temporary badges, and okay, blah, blah, blah. We knew their contractor names, and we had a good story. But we wanted to get into important rooms, and our badges did not work on those doors. We're like, I'm not even going to try it because I don't want the access logs to be full of red. But earlier, we had starved a card from a badge from a guard. So we're like, all right. So most of the people on the team, they took their badges and they started rewriting them to badge, be the guard. They can get into a lot of doors. I wanted to fly a little more under the radar. I wrote the badge for the guard on my hand. I got into a data hall. It was really, easy. I'm like, bam, okay, in. And I'm, dropping little notes that like prove we were there. An employee came around, and this employee is like, hey, what are you doing in here? And I'm like, oh, refilling that fluorescent light fluid. Whatever the story was we had. And he's like, no, hang on. And he like cracks his head in the hallway. He's like, sir, he brings a guard over. He's like, can we figure this out? This is a real high secure facility. He's like, this gentleman is in here, and that's a red badge. That's a vendor or contractor badge. You have to have an escort. I need to know why you're in here. And I was like, I thought this is not where I'm supposed to be. I mean, I was looking just to check the readings on this thing. We were talking about environmental readings, is what we were doing. I'm like, I just came to check the environmentals. I got my thermostat meter and things. He's like, no, look, I understand you seem like a nice guy and you're covering for someone. I want to know who let you into this room because it's not you. You're not in trouble, but someone else needs to understand policy. And I'm like, look, I'm not trying to jam you up here, but I just badged in. I don't know what to tell you, man. So they actually took my badge off my, hip. They hit the door with it, and the door stays red, obviously. He's like, you did not badge in, and I really need you to stop jerking me around. And I'm looking at it, I was like, look, guard, Mr. Guard, because the guards are always less trained than the employees. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, man. I mean, this guy's really trying to, I want to follow policy. I swear, if you got cameras in this place, call the SOC right now. I'm not trying to jam you up, but literally no one needs to be in trouble. My badge let me in. And the guard's like, hey, yeah, this is Mobile 6. Yeah, I'm here in Data Hall 5. So yeah, we got a situation. There's a guy with a beard and brown hair. Yeah, he's in here with a red badge. He's saying that no one let him in. Can we go ahead and play that footage back? So what they did is they ran footage back on the exterior door, and it's footage of me literally walking up with this badge that I stretched out on a lanyard, and they just see me do this, and the door turns green. And they're like, the sock is squawking on the radio. They're like, yeah, dude, that red badge, I'm watching the video. Red badge just opened the door. And like, they could have searched me and I wouldn't have another badge on me because it was in my freaking hand. So, like, it's goofy as a party trick most of the time, but when it works, it's a really choice kind of tool to have. Highly recommended. Yeah, dude, go for it. Like literally, it's one of the coolest body mods I've ever
So
done.
what happened?
Oh, they were like, there's got to be a problem with Linnell access. We got to debug this. Sorry for your time, sir. And they let me keep walking around. They didn't check anything they were so puzzled because we had also stolen a radio, so Rob was listening to all this chatter. And they were so puzzled as to what happened that they didn't check whatever I had touched in the room. They just kind of got me out of the room and they didn't see that I had plugged a bunch of home plugs in and things. So that's like a mini story. But how are we doing on time? We've got, are you tracking? Are you having a good time here so far?
Yeah.
All right. So we have a lot of stories from the field. And we don't have time for every story. But what I thought is a little adventure that you can select for yourselves. So here's how this goes, right? We can, by show of hands, decide which, we can probably get 2 or maybe even 3 stories in here. So this is a pretty good Robert story, the problem solver. I enjoy it. Say again has to do with radio traffic, if we have any RF people in the room. If you ever see my elevator hacking talks, there's an elevator story I got for you. There's one involving armed guards that was Babak and Robert at a medical bio lab. The cable technicians has to do with pretty good service, like social engineering. Servicing the doors has got to be one of my hilarious stories. I really hope a few people like that. Detailed dossier is kind of long, but also has a lot of good lessons in it. By show of hands, let's talk, who would like to see story 1, the problem solver? Some hands. How about Say Again, the radio story? That's like no hands. Wow, one person's like, no. Put it down. Elevators? All right, so we got some love for elevators. Arm guards? That's almost equal there. How about cable technicians? That's almost a few. Servicing the doors? That's a lot of hands. And detailed dossier. That's, all right, this is, have you been watching the crowd? All right, we're going to start with servicing some doors. All right. So story 6, keeping the doors in good order. So, big part of what we do is surveillance. It's the non-glorious part of the job. But before we ever try to make entry, we're spending a lot of time just in our camis, crawling through fields, putting eyes on target. Robert is like, he went to sniper school. Like, dude has a ghillie suit, legit. So he can just army crawl through dirt for hours, just scoping out targets. Now, a lot of critical facilities, this was a critical infrastructure facility. This was, I'm not going to say it was water, power, nuclear. It was, a proper target. A lot of big facilities are constantly building new stuff. They're expanding, there's work crews around. So instantly we start getting eyes on those cats. We're like, all right, these are contractors, these are not. And by getting up close and personal, again, army crawling through the fields, he and Drew got within 50 yards of their vehicle checkpoint. And at the VCP, he's listening to chatter, he's learning which contractor names are checking in, and we were able to tell, okay, on-site staff has neon and only silver. These guys, okay, so orange with the vertical stripe, that's whatever contractor, they're putting up the high steel, horizontal stripe, okay, that's Sullivan, they're doing the door installs. So we're getting all this intelligence just by figuring out which contractors are coming and going. And then he and Drew kind of shuffle their way back at dusk. They get out of the field. Okay, we've got kind of a plan. We're going to go in as certain contractors, and we're going to be doing construction work like the other guys are doing construction work. So Rob and I get all decked out. We've got every kind of high-vis and PPE to beat the band because you want to match. Do you have full brim or do you have regular front brim helmet? You got to match that stuff, right? You got to get your story together. And you also don't drive in with the nice-looking office worker. That's weird. So how did Rob and I get in? Well, we went in the trunk. Sophie's at the wheel. Sophie is a devastator as a social engineer and as a physical security person. I mean, she had all these different chained dependencies for her stories. She's either pretending she knew, okay, I can tailgate here, or if that person turns to lot B, I'm going to K-turn and we'll spoil the car, we'll get a new car. We had all these stories planned, but Rob and I are in this trunk and we just feel like a stop at the guardhouse. We hear some chatter and then we feel like we're rolling again. We're wow, we're past the gate. That worked. Okay, cool. Option 1 worked. Great, good job, Sophie. And she's snickering up front. She's like, yeah, we're good. We're inside the fence line. So she parks. She gets out. She's going to go tailgate into some other buildings. Rob and I kind of extricate ourselves from the back seat through the back of the trunk. And now we kind of slip out of this car. And now we're on premises, looking like we belong there. Oh yeah, we're the contractors from Sullivan. We're time to service those doors, right? So we're walking around with power tools. And we just start taking doors apart. We just start like taking apart the door sill because we want to try to underdoor this thing. And as we're drilling, we're like reefing on these doors and things with loud tools. In the sock, like our contact actually noticed this happening. This was way into the job. We had done a lot of light probing for a while, but this was the day we were going to really burn it down. And our contact is looking, he's like, that's those guys. And he's trying to keep silent. And after like 15 minutes of this, he's like, hey, can you pull up monitor 7? What's going on? Is that the north side of the building? And then click, click, somebody. He's like, yeah, do we have Sullivan on building 6? Are we working on doors today? He's really trying to give his team a win here. And the SOC crew was like, they had so much work going on. They're like, I think I saw something about that earlier. I think we're doing doors. And he's like, okay. Kind of steps back. He's texting. He's like, hey, dude, I don't think they're catching anything. Can you go louder? I'm like, how much? We're power drilling doors apart. He's like, well, on that kickoff call, you said you could do like destructive attacks. Can you do that? I'm like, are you going to authorize it? He's like, yeah, we'll pay for it. I'm like, okay. Reach into the bag. We took out a hammer drill. We just started drilling locks. But again, we're in full hype. This is 2 in the afternoon at a ginormous facility. And people are just walking by, and they're like, oh yeah, those contractors, they're doing something, I guess. And I'm making a ton of noise. And Rob is filming me trying to not laugh. And all we're doing is we're actually destroying the lock. We're destroying the lug so we can pull it out and just use that traveler hook to flick the tailpiece. We didn't even care. We just left the door with no lock in it. We're really trying to be obvious here. We set off a screamer alarm as we went in this fire control room. And eventually, I'm trying to underdoor the next door. And then finally, this got some attention. Because we're setting off alarms. And they're looking on camera. They're like, that's like drill shit. So eventually, they sent out a mobile unit. Mobile unit comes out, and he's like, hey, all right, can you stand up, please? What are you doing? I'm like, all right, all right, excuse me, I'm like, underdoor tool. He's like, I need you guys did you just come in through the fact P room? We're like, yeah, that was loud. He's like, yeah, that was an alarm. Like, what are you doing here? And Rob was like, all right, we're roasted. Rob was ready to give him the authorizing letter. And just because, let's Hail Mary this last buzzer shot, I look, because I had my hand, I'm not going to lie, I was ready to produce a letter too. But instead of, like, what are you doing here? I'm like, what does it look like we're doing? Just to see what he would say. And that broke his brain. He was like, well, it looks like you're trying to get in that door. But you clearly work here because I can see you have badges. Next, and Rob, he's like, you have a radio, just call for a remote unlock if you ever need that. You don't have to go through all this trouble. And we're like, oh yeah, well, we didn't know if that would trouble you. He's like, no, it's no trouble at all. He's like, yeah, this is Mobile 6. Yeah, I'm with the Sullivan guys. Can we remote unlock door 17? We're like, all right, cool, that's awesome. Thanks, man. See you later. We're just working on some doors today. And again, I'm texting, I'm talking to our client, and we're like, dude, we've got to be nailed. Those guards must be running back to the SOC right now to report this. And he's like, hang on, let me check. He sticks his head in, and it's just all quiet on the Western Front. He's like, dude, I don't think you're popped yet. Can you go bigger? I'm like, how much, what? So eventually, and this was on a podcast, I told this story once, where I just took one of the guard security carts. I just took it and started driving in donuts around the parking lot. Just trying to make people notice that why is the guy with the high-vis construction, why is he in a security cart driving around the buildings? Eventually they had bikes on campus. So I just stole some bike that was next to a building and started jumping off berms and little things. That finally got the guards' attention. Because and again, Robert's listening to radios and I'm getting signal messages. He's like, dude, some mobile units are coming your way. I'm like, okay, finally they notice something's up. But the thing is, most guards, what are they going to do, spear me with a truck? They would just drive up next, hey, can you please get off the bike, sir? Do you belong? I was like, I don't know, bikes are hard, I might fall off. And the fun thing about bikes, right, bikes can go where cars can't. So there was a lot of stuff kind of like this going on. I would cut through bushes, and then I would come, and I'm watching pickup trucks back up and come around. And now there's so many mobile units trying to find they thought I was a mental case. They were like, this guy is disturbed. We saw him running through buildings, now he's on a bike. They were trying to loop all these trucks around the parking lot to box me in. But at this time, everyone was eyes on the nutso guy, and the rest of my team was destroying this place. They were in every building, they were everywhere they wanted to be. It was incredible. The guards became so distracted by nuts person on a bike that they forgot their main mission is like, hey, maybe people are unauthorized inside this building. And eventually it took a supervisor coming back to be like, hey, what are y'all doing in the sock? And we heard the call go out. He's like, bike guy may be a distraction. Do your effing jobs. Come cancel all guard tours, challenge anyone who doesn't belong, challenge unknown player. So that's what it took. That's the level of escalation it took to make them understand what was going on. I think I can click, there we go, back to stories. So we had a couple, remind me of what other hands we had.
We have elevator, arm guards, and cable.
All right, elevator, arm guards, and cable. And these, all right, how would, are you sure you're hanging right now? You're not wasting your evening here? All right, we'll tell a couple more. So the elevator repair story. So we had a client. We were able to get in most of the way into the building. We started by attacking a rec sensor. Again, you got a big magnetic lock here. There's your can of air. You can literally see the sensor up top. Got in. Now, if you're in a building, elevator tech is a great cover story. Because it's someone who kind of belongs there, but is never usually there. They're maybe around for your semi-annuals. Oh, the elevator guys are doing something, I don't know. And if you've got your metal contractor clipboard, right, you've got your attack tools inside the clipboard, whatever you need. So we're in this building. Now this was a subcontracted job. We were brought in as physical experts because the main company, they were trying to drop a little drop box, get on the network. And as we get in the building, the guy I'm with, he's like, oh, shoot, I didn't bring the drop box. I was updating it, it's at the hotel. I was like, yeah, go back to the hotel. I'll stick around, I'll stay in the building. Now that we got in, I'll just let you back in. He's like, you'll stay in the building? How long? I was like, well, dude, if you've never seen my elevator talks, I can put an elevator on independent mode, which will take it out of the bank of operation. I can just sit in this elevator with the door shut, and I'm fine. I was like, dude, I'm just gonna catch up on Twitter. You're subcontracting me, so it's on your dime, I don't care, but take all the time you need. So, Bro goes back to the hotel, and it was going very slowly. I'm messaging him, I'm like, hey, I'm in this elevator. Thank goodness I have Slim Jims or something inside of my metal contractor clipboard. I'm like, is everything all right? The hotel's 15 minutes away. Did you have bowel distress? And he's like, no, it's not going well. I'm like, what's that? He's like, tell you later. I'm like an hour in, hour and a half in. I'm like, what is, all right, you gotta tell me, is everything, do you actually have an emergency? Did something go really wrong? I'm not hearing from you. He's like, freaking USB keyboard's not working. I'm like, what? He's like, well, I should have tested this damn thing last night. Test your tools. So his USB keyboard wasn't working. He was using on-screen keyboard to set up these scripts attached to the hotel TV. I'm like, oh, that sounds terrible. Good thing I got Twitter. So I'm just thinking, oh, whatever, fine. Hours go by. And then I nearly had a heart attack because I thought I heard someone pounding on the hoistway doors. I'm like, oh God, they know I'm in here. Are there cameras in here? I finally got caught. I'm like, no, wait a minute, calm down, calm down. It's like when you're camping, everything sounds loud in the woods at night, but it's probably like a squirrel. I'm like, okay, no, wait, it's now it's after 5, for Christ's sake. That's gotta be the cleaners. They must be Windexing handprints off the hoistway doors or something. It was not the cleaners. It was a guard. But not for the reasons you might think. Guy messaged me, he's like, all right, I got everything working. I'm coming back. I'm like, dude, it's 5:30 now. There's no one in this building. Hopefully they don't notice us. He pulls up. He's like, all right, can you come let me in? Because all the doors are definitely locked now. Okay, so I elevator back to automatic. And as I go out of the elevator to go to the vestibule, I just happened to notice as the door shut, I had been in there so long. Someone put a sign up that was elevator's not working. Use North Bank elevators. So I'm like, oh wow, okay. That's an interesting thing. I let him in. Now we're the only ones in the building except for some guards. And sure enough, within 5 minutes, a guard comes around down a hall and he's like, looks at us, looks at me, looks at my Otis badge and everything. The guard is like, oh wow, you guys got here fast. Well, yeah, well you're paying for that Otis Elite Care service we had. You got a stoppage today, and so let me try to do things. And I'm just doing elevator key things that make noises and buzzers. And all right, so it looks like she's running again. Let's try to take it up to a few different floors. Let's run it all the way up to the 4th floor, shall we? Which is where all the cool stuff was. So the guard is with us in this elevator. He's like, yeah, people were calling our desk all day. we're like really glad it's working again. We were gonna listen to that all week. I'm like, no problem, sir, I'm pretty sure it's okay. But you know what, there could be some error logging data whenever you have interruptions like that, and you don't wanna have like an entrapment, right? So do you have like a room that might say server room or something? And if there's probably gonna be a box in there that controls the elevators. It's not where the elevator controller is. Like if you just let us in there, we could probably dump that error data and look at the audit logs and try to make sure you don't get jammed up. He's like, oh, that would be fantastic. Here, it's right over here. So the guard lets us in. We didn't have to underdoor it or anything. And yeah, so like my buddy, he runs and he's plugging things in. I'm telling the guard, I'm like, so the elevator controller is always a bright neon green server. You know, he's looking, he's like, I'm not seeing any neon green servers. I'm like, yeah, well, yeah, it might not be. Let's look down the other aisle. Are you okay over there, buddy? All right, so I'm just walking around with this guard, and I'm like, oh, you might have that. You might have cloud-based service for this elevator. So we might just we'll pull the ticket from Otis Elite Care. You know, don't worry about it. We got you, man. No sweat. And you know, my buddy is like, tee, I plugged it in like 6 places. So yeah, because who wouldn't want to keep their elevators working, right? You want to, like, that's a critical piece of the building. You don't want to have people bitching all day. The elevators are down. The guard was so relieved to see us that he's like, oh God, I will let you anywhere you need to be. I will badge you in. I will unlock doors because I don't want to keep having people buzzing my extensions saying I can't get up to the 4th floor. So yeah, that was a complete win, all because, you know, I've got a little Otis badge, and I've got, you know, my clipboard and my high vis, and like, there you go. Solid, right? All right, let's go back to where we have our little clip.
Let's do armed guards.
Oh, you just want to do armed guards? All right.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do armed guards, and then we can maybe end it on detailed dossier. Armed guards wasn't a me story, but I know the details because it was Bobak and Robert, and it's a good story. So not every story has to involve me, even though this photo does. So a lot of times your basic guards are not very well trained. There are third-party contracts. Here you have a guard desk that was just unoccupied. And I walked by it on a gig, and I was like, here, take a picture of me sitting there. And I'm just holding, if you notice, the binder of like all the building keys and key cards. And I'm like, hey, go hit that other part of the building. I'm just going to sit here and see how long it takes to get caught. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah, it's the end of the week. Give the guards a win. And I just sat there spinning around in this chair for like 15 minutes and got bored. Because I don't know where the guards were. They were doing something else. Fine. I just left. I'm like, okay, we'll mark that down. Maybe hire 1 more guard so someone can go on a break post. But this is, you know, your average guards. Armed guards are a little more frosty. Armed guards go through more training. We get this question all the time, like, are you worried about jobs with armed guards? The answer is no. Guards, they're never going to draw down on you unless you're doing something egregious, unless you're threatening someone's physical harm. So armed guards in general, the problem is they're just sharper, right? They're just more crisp. They've gone through more awareness training. So we had this hardened target. It was essentially, without revealing too much, they did advanced biomedical research. They were doing prototyping and biomedical device creation in their lab. So we're looking at this facility, and it's not near most of the things. It's way on the edge of a city. And across the street, we're like, okay, there's like a Chinese restaurant across the street. We looked at it on Street View. We're like, okay, we're gonna sit there, because we're not gonna get inside the fence line, but we're gonna get employee credentials. We need electronic credentials to get in this building. It turns out it wasn't. It was like a Chinese herbal shop. And Robert says it looked like the place where you got the Mogwai in the movie Gremlins. Like, it was, no employees were going across the street. There was catering on site. No one went there. It was rainy. And Bobak and Rob are like, wow, this is kind of the bust of the job. What are we going to do? Because this facility, the perimeters had gate access around all the back sides. You had a tiny front parking lot. There was one major entrance. This was the only real entrance to the building that had any kind of glass. Everything else was just brick facade. So we're looking at that, and we're like, man, there's no way we're getting in without, we do have to do this credential thing. The other doors, they are tight as a drum. We have our card reader, right? We have our long-range reader in a bag that we thought we were going to pop employees. But the only people that you could interact with in that vestibule were guards, armed guards. We're like, all right. What is a lot of people who get into like arms, what are they trying to do as a career? Military. They want to they've probably come out of the military, or they want to go into law enforcement. We're like, there's a good chance some of those cats are trying to be cops. Like, Rob, go in there and cop it up, man. Like, you were on the job. So sure enough, we send Robert in. Now at this point, it's late. Like, we burned a couple of days just trying to like all these different things that didn't work. It's nighttime. place is vacant. There's only this one door. So Rob is driving up, he's got his badge reader, in the bag. Bobbick's with him. Bobbick kind of crouches down in the back seat. And Bobbick's like, all right, just park right here, and I'll stay in the car. And Bobbick's like, it's late at night. What? I gotta park in front, like no one would park in the middle of nowhere. He's like, all right, well, as long as the heater's running, I'm fine. And Robert's like, heater? What heater? No one leaves a car running in the middle of the night in the wind. He's like, put my coat on. So Bobbick's under like 2 coats. He's not happy about this at all. But he's remotely connected to the badge reader. He's going to message Rob if he gets any credentials. Rob walks in this building, and like instantly attenuation from the credential drops out. Like Bobbick is blind, Rob's getting no messages, and Rob's just starts doing this dance with the guards. He's getting close to guards, and if you've ever known anyone who's done any kind of firearms work, like your strong side, if someone approaches you, you just blade off. You blade back. You keep your strong side back. Not because you think they're a sketchy person, it's just ingrained in you, it just happens. So Rob really wanted to pull security footage from the lobby, because it was 45 minutes of this like do-si-do dance of like getting near people and not, and like other people are turning back. And this one guard he had really good rapport with was behind a desk. So he put the guard reader, he put his bag on the desk. He's like, hey, is this restaurant still open at this hour? It's getting really late. And then he was hoping the guard would like lean over because the badge was right here. Nothing happening. And Rob's like, all right, I got him. This is just weird at this point. So he's like, all right, so yeah, take it easy, man. It's nice meeting you. Yeah, if you want to go down to Fletsy, I can put in a word with the instructors there, get you some new Hey, I'm gonna come around. He comes around the desk, and he's like saying goodbye. This one guard he had good rapport with, he just swung his badge reader around and just like surprise hugged him. And made it like weird. Gave him like a 2-second hug. And he's like, all right, well take it easy, guys. Nice to meet you, Frank. And the guards like kind of probably looked at him, like, that was weird. But Robert leaves, gets back in the car, and Bobbick's in the back seat, and he's like, Bobbick, I think I got a badge. And Bobbick's like, I'm fucking cold. So they drove to like a gas station, dumped out all the credentials, and they're looking at the logs, and Bobbick's like, you were in there over an hour. You got 1 read. But who do you have? Now he was a guard. And at this facility, every employee had their own badge. They had their own, like, if you popped a badge, Linnell Access was like here's your face, here's everything, except guards. They had so much turnover on the guard force, they only had like a dozen badges. And every shift, they would just hand off badges. And it just said, like, special. So that was the only kind of badge. The badge that did everything had no picture associated with it, nothing. And the next day, he and Bobbick came in, destroyed the place, and we even have hidden camera footage of Rob like badging into a room, and a guard is like, excuse me, and, hey, what's up? What's up, man? And he's like, what kind of badge is that? It's not coming up on my reader. He's like, oh, you gotta like think on your feet, you gotta lie quickly. Lying fast is a good life skill. Rob's like, oh, it's a VIP badge. We're from the San Francisco office. They expire at 11:59 tonight. He's like, oh, yeah, that's weird. I never saw one of those. Okay. Keeps on walking. Yeah, they got through all the prototype labs. They have really cool photos of them with all this $1 million IP. And all of this because a number of things cascaded as failures, right? The guards were pretty sharp, but not sharp enough. And more than that, the guards were issued these common credentials. Credentials cost like money, but not that much money. Like $5-6 per card, you could have bought a few more multi-million-dollar megacorp. But that was just the thing. And we promised with this big payday we got from getting in, like, hey Bobbick, we're gonna buy you a little air mattress in the back seat. There you go. So we said we wanted to try one more, right?
One more.
All right. There we go. What was it gonna be? All right. So detailed dossier. We had a client, and again, more secure than most. It wasn't just an office building. It was a building set back kind of away from the city. It was on the edge of a populated metropolitan area. And they had a lot of high-value people coming and going. I won't exactly think like judges and DAs and such, but it wasn't a courthouse. It was that tier of like, hey, we want to know if people can track who our people are. Our job was mostly a surveillance job. And they said, all right, so we want to know what information you can get about the people in our building and how vulnerable they would be to tailing, to finding out where they live, to finding out their hours. We said, okay, so can we like, is this anything electronic? You want OSINT? You want like what's on the, hanging on the web? Like, no, just on the ground. But you're not authorized to enter the building. Like, you're really tying our freaking hands here. So we can get up to the building? He's like, well, you can try. So they had this whole like no parking zone. You weren't allowed to idle a vehicle out front because again, like super high value targets, right? When we delivered this report a week later, everyone's jaws hit the table because we said, okay, it looks like these are all your key executives, these are all your visiting foreign people, this is the car service, you have all these different cars with these license plates, and it looks like you're probably using this car service and it just rotates. And we're laying down like hours of operation, when they come, when they go, who works next to who, and everyone lost their mind. And they said, you didn't do anything with you didn't pop our data center or anything? Like, no, we just did this all from the field. So long-range surveillance is a thing, right? Like, this is expensive. This is about a $45,000 camera rig, right? But if you rent an Airbnb that's overlooking a property, and you get about, this is about a quarter mile, half mile out, this is on a moonless night with like an image booster and stuff, right? If you get, you can do amazing things with camera gear. And this is during the night. During the day, we run whole surveillance and camera training classes where we'll just teach people to get the most out of their gear. We were able to start tracking their hours of operation. We said, okay, well remember open field surveillance? We absolutely could do that. Why? Because this backed up to open land. So again, you start putting people in the dirt, we crawl through the fields, getting closer, getting closer, getting closer. And if you just put on some camis, man, like there's a photo of a person right here. Put eyes on target with a telephoto lens. Let's zoom in even further. Like sniper at your feet, right here. Can anyone actually spot the person? You can barely see their hands. Let me help you out. This is Drew. This is Drew's camera. This is Drew in the field. And if you're right on top of Drew, imagine trying to spot Drew from 50, 100. I mean, don't feel like they couldn't see us either. I love this photo that Drew took. Drew's just like, Robert, someone's putting eyes on us. Gets one of theirs. Like, maybe there's like a future solution with AI that will help automate this. But it's hard. It's hard to spot people. Like, if anybody hunts in this room, like stalking and putting yourself in the field is a thing. But then we got really up close and personal. We showed them all this, that we're like, but ultimately what we did is we did some surveillance from, maybe about 50 feet away from your front door. And they're like, you can't, like there's 50 feet away from your front door, that's in the parking loop, you can't be there. How long were you there? We're like, oh, we went there for like 15 minutes at a time, a couple times a day. We're like, you what? We're like, well yeah, we put GoPros in these cameras in the car, and we drove cars up, and we just kind of watched people coming and going. That's Drew, right there. Spent 5 hours, no one paid attention to him. That's Esther. She actually got a few people to come up and say hi. Almost invariably, by the way, when we do this routine, it's almost always women, and it's almost always women of color, who come up and say, hey, how are you? Are you okay? How you doing? And Esther is like, hoping they don't notice that on the back of her pizza boxes, she's writing down like license plates and times of day. But absolutely, this is real world stuff. And this is the kind of thing that our team does. And that is how we operate. And this is the world that I see when I walk through it. And maybe you'll start seeing the world as I do in some of these ways. There's a really wonderful artist who I love, Amanda Palmer. If anyone knows AFP, Amanda fucking Palmer, like she was in the band called the Dresden Dolls. She's Neil Gaiman's wife. Whenever she's in town, I'll try to catch her. And the last time I saw her, she was talking about the darkness. She's like, the show that she has out right now is an incredible one-woman show. And she's like, I'm really glad that you came with me to this dark place, because the artist's job is to bring you into the darkness. And she says, she's like, I wanted to bring you into the darkness today, right? She's like, the darkness isn't scary because it's dark. It's scary because you're alone. And if you get to the dark place with other people and you know you're not alone, the darkness isn't that scary anymore. And I love that when she said it. I love referencing it when I talk to you, because you're not really alone in the dark place. It's a lot of scary things in the world, but there are other people out there, and we're on your side. And we love doing this, and we love sharing this kind of knowledge, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you stay safe.
If you want to check out Deviant's locks and lockpicks, please stick around afterwards. If you want to be notified of future events, over in the back. check out the pop-up gallery, and thank you again so very much.
Oh, yeah.